recognized the ranking member, the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Grothman, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thanks. We'll ask Mr. Lindberg the questions. In February 2020, the Trump administration signed the Doha Agreement with the Taliban, and this agreement required that the Taliban sever all ties with al-Qaeda before the U.S. withdrew. Did the Taliban, to the best of your knowledge, meet all the requirements of the 2020 agreement before the Biden administration withdrew?
Thank you, sir. We have been very clear. We're very mission-focused right now, and we've been very clear with the Taliban what we expect of them in terms of counterterrorism. They are aware that they need to, if they want to build any legitimacy with the United States and the international community, cut ties with al-Qaeda and also ensure that Afghanistan never again becomes a source of terrorist threat to the United States or any of our allies. And they're absolutely focused on degrading ISIS-K, and it also there's been many discussions on our concerns about al-Qaeda and the persistent presence in parts of Afghanistan.
Since you didn't answer yes, I take it that means there's still some ties there, or what's the deal?
The Taliban have, including in a meeting just a few days ago, have assured the United States and also international partners that they will never again allow Afghanistan to become a source of terrorist threat to the United States or any other country.
You're still kind of weaseling around the question. Do they have ties with al-Qaeda?
We're going to have a classified session later on today, and we'd be happy to talk in a little bit more detail about terrorist activities and threats emanating from Afghanistan. I'll say that right now we've been very clear in our messaging with the Taliban on numerous occasions.
Okay. Now we have a leadership vacuum in Afghanistan, and we have kind of that empty airport there. Will Russia, China, or Iran attempt to make geostrategic gains through Afghanistan now that we're not there, including at the airport?
Sir, so I'm happy to take back the question regarding to the future of the airport, which is outside my purview in the Counterterrorism Bureau. What I can say is that, as my DoD colleague said, we're working in the region to bolster our partners' capabilities. We're not the only power in that region. We know that Russia and China and others have interests in that region. Where we can work collaboratively with them, we will, and where our interests diverge, and we'll follow U.S. Priorities and interests. And I absolutely know that there have been a number of meetings with the Russian and the Chinese that the United States has been part of, and there's a lot of concern among all the parties in the region about specifically terrorist threats and instability emanating from Afghanistan.
That's interesting. So you mean that Russia, China, and the U.S. all sit together with the Afghans?
We had one meeting that I'm aware of with Russia and China. There's definitely a press statement on that. And we've had interaction with both countries where we highlight, and also there's been actually interaction in the United Nations as well. So there's a number of fora that where we interact with both and where we highlight our major concerns about Afghanistan, what we expect of the Taliban, and also what we expect of the countries in the region to do.
Do you believe terror networks will begin to reform in Afghanistan?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Do you think terror networks will reform in Afghanistan?
So we're very concerned about terrorist threats in Afghanistan. And I think there have been a number of public comments on ISIS-K threats in particular, but also potentially over time al-Qaeda threats emanating from Afghanistan. We are monitoring it closely, and we are putting in place not just the unilateral over-the-horizon capability to degrade that threat, but also working to bolster the capabilities in the region.
Okay, were counterterror officials involved in the vetting of Afghan refugees?
The vetting of Afghan refugees is handled by law enforcement and security professionals.
Okay, so you don't know.
The Counterterrorism Bureau is aware of all that and involved in a lot of the negotiation of international agreements, but we're not involved in the actual vetting. No, that is DHS and some other agencies.
Were any suspected terrorists or individuals with ties to terrorism that you know evacuated from Afghanistan? And I'm going to follow up and give you another question here. When the people come here from Afghanistan, one of the problems we have at the southern border is people show up without IDs. Do we know who these people are for sure? Do they just make up a name, or what's the deal there before we let them in the country?
So this is what I can assure you, that we have robust vetting and screening of every single individual that would come in the United States, and that includes biographic and biometric information. So we have a lot of information about individuals that doesn't rely on documentary evidence, for example. Any Afghan that came out of Afghanistan was thoroughly vetted before coming to the United States. If there are issues, then we see, certainly DHS has the authorities to prevent those individuals from entering the United States.
Well, I suppose I should say that's good. I don't know. Okay, thank you.